The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports.
LSU lands transfers in football.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers.
For a solid week, you've heard me talk about AJ Halcy, and as a matter of fact, on Saturday, you heard me say this. Halcy is going to visit LSU on Sunday, and I believe, barring something dramatically unforeseen, he will be an LSU Tiger. Might have a few whispers already that he's heading that way. Yeah, because AJ Halcy had already silently committed to LSU, and I knew that on Friday. So Halcy had committed to LSU. He took his visit. It was all the things that we had talked about. He had visited Ole Miss, left there without committing. He visited Miami, left there without committing. LSU had a very healthy NIL offer on the table, and obviously an opportunity to play immediately on a championship caliber team. On Friday, Miami took a commitment from a Tennessee safety transfer, which opened the door for Halcy, basically essentially ushered Halcy to LSU, which we knew was going to be the thing. So I told you the numbers already. I don't know the exact number that Halcy got in NIL, but what I do know is that the on-3 NIL valuation for him was $400,000. I was told point blank when I asked, the number was higher than that, but I did not find out an exact number. Yes, LSU very much in the business of buying players, which Brian Kelly said a year ago they were not, but this is the game. If you were to win at this game, you have to play this game, which means you have to be willing to pay players more than other teams will. If all else is equal, money will win out. And that's not to say all else is equal in every situation, but in a given situation, if all else is equal, money will win out. And LSU has certainly been able to do that in this transfer portal class. My goodness, what a haul for LSU. No pun intended there with AJ Halcy, but LSU, the transfer portal class here for 2025, depending on which, service you subscribe to, LSU either the number 1 or 2 portal class in the country. And they've added 2 here in the spring cycle. I want to remind you of this because after the spring game, the spring scrimmage, whatever you want to call it, this is what Brian Kelly said when he was asked about the spring transfer portal.
Yeah, I mean, I like our roster right now. It wouldn't surprise me if we didn't have anybody in the portal on either side, either leaving our program or adding. I would be if you ask me right now, I would be happy to take this roster right into May, and on both sides of it. Maybe that's fool's gold. Maybe that's wishing more than anything else. But I like what we've done with this roster. I like the development of it. Not all of that is in my control, obviously, but I can tell you we're not actively saying we got to have this, we got to have that. We feel good about our roster. If something shows itself that is an incredible opportunity, we're certainly going to investigate any time that we can help our football team. And so we're always going to be looking to help our team, but it's not like it was obviously in January.
Not like it was in January, certainly not like it was a year ago or when Brian Kelly showed up. I want to illustrate to you how much things have changed. So with the addition of AJ Halcy, Bernard Gooden was the previous transfer. With AJ Halcy, LSU is now at 18 portal additions for 2025. Let me give you some context. When Brian Kelly showed up in 2022, remember, Ed Ogeron had kind of left and decimated the roster. There were 38 scholarship players that played in that bowl game, that Texas Bowl against Kansas State. Remember that? How could you forget if you watched it? He had a receiver playing quarterback. Anyway, that year, LSU had to fortify its numbers. It added 15 portal players. A year later, they added 13. And for the 2024 roster, they added 9 via the portal. Remember, Brian Kelly had said pretty openly he wanted to build through the high school ranks, recruit, develop, and supplement via the portal. And we said pretty consistently here, only time would tell if that strategy would work. And what happened? You were 8-4 a year ago because you added 9 bodies. And 9 bodies can be fine if it's not in impact players, but that's not what LSU added in 2024. The transfer portal players they added in 24 were JVR Suggs, Gio Paez, CJ Daniels, Austin Osbury, Blake Oxendorf, Xavier Thomas, Jair Brown, Jordan Gilbert, AJ Swan. Get the point? None of those guys were impact guys in 2024. Look at what they have added now. Not only have they added 18 players via the portal, the most of the Kelly era, it's impact guys. Go back to the very beginning. Jamari Butler, Jakeem Jackson, Josh Thompson's going to be a starter. Barrion Brown could be a starter. Nick Anderson could be your best receiver. Bauer Sharp's going to start at tight end. Destin Hill's going to be an impact guy. Braylon Moore's probably your starting center. Michael Van Buren's your backup quarterback. Jack Pyburn's probably your starting defensive end. Mansour Delane's going to start at corner. Grant Chadwick's probably your starting punter. Sadir Mitchell's going to be part of your defensive tackle rotation. Patrick Payton's going to start at defensive end. Donovan Green's a backup tight end. Tamarcus Cooley, AJ Halcy are going to start at safety. Bernard Gooden's going to start at defensive tackle or certainly be part of the rotation. The point is, you didn't just go add bodies. You had dudes that you're expecting to be immediate impact guys, a dramatic difference from a year ago or at any point during the Brian Kelly era, which he is in effect telling you the way that you have to win is not what he thought it was going to be. And it makes sense because you're looking at a situation where you're going to lose a quarter of your roster every year. So in 2 years, half of your recruiting class is gone. You can go spend all the resources to recruit Lance Hurd. If he's gone after 1 year, what did that get you? Why not, instead of getting Lance Hurd for 1 year as a backup, go get Braylon Moore or Josh Thompson for 1 year as a starter? That's kind of the approach you have to take. And it's a year-to-year approach, and it's not what most people are used to or what most people want to see in college football, but it's the reality. And if you want to win, it's what Ohio State did last year. It's what Ole Miss did last year. Ohio State won a national championship. Ole Miss didn't make the playoff. So you still got to coach them. You still got to be able to take all those pieces, put them together, make them win. But undeniably, you added AJ Halcy, whose PFF grade a year ago was 80.5. The highest graded safety on your team was a 69. That was Sage Ryan. He's not even on the team anymore. He's in Oxford at Ole Miss. So you upgraded your safety position, which was your worst position defensively, by adding not 1, but 2 starting safeties. By the way, Halcy played both free and strong in 2024 at the University of Houston. He started 33 games during his career. So go get it, man. You went and got 2 guys at safety that make you immediately better. Now, I did get this message from a guy named Travis who said, Matt, I have a thought. And if you think it's stupid, tell me. His words, not mine. He said, we just spent $1 trillion at safety in the winter portal, meaning on Tamarcus Cooley. And we're about to get another high-priced guy. Meanwhile, guys like Deshaun Spears was a 5-star as a sophomore now. We shouldn't need to get portal guys to play over him. He should be ready to go now. We would never have gotten portal guys to play over Grant Delpit or Eric Reed. I'm not saying Spears should be as good as those guys, but I think he should be ready to go at least at this point. Right. A couple of things. Number one, you didn't spend $1 trillion. And number two, none of the guys you have on the roster are sophomore Grant Delpit or Eric Reed. Grant Delpit played a ton as a sophomore. Eric Reed started as a freshman. Eric Reed was starting by November of his freshman season. Those were already starting caliber players. Deshaun Spears played a lot in the first month of the season, wasn't quite ready for it. In the second half of the season, saw his playing time diminish dramatically over the second half of the season at LSU as a freshman. So it's not what and what. As a matter of fact, if you look at Spears's snap counts by game a year ago, in the opener against USC, he played 2 snaps against Nicholls, 28, South Carolina, 44, UCLA, 37, South Alabama, 37. Again, then this is his snap count the rest of the way. 3, 5, 13, 8, 1. He vanished. He vanished because he wasn't ready. Now, he played 27 snaps against Baylor in the bowl game. He had opt-outs and everything. Jordan Gilbert had the shoulder surgery. But the point is, he wasn't ready. By the end of their freshman years, Reed and Delpit were ready. So could Spears and Toviano and Rogers, could they be great in 2025? They could. Maybe they won't be. So do you go with a question or a given? A given is two guys that were starting safeties at the Power 5 level and were great players. And if your young guys beat them out, awesome. But if not, pretty nice fallback. Having two dudes that were starters at the Power 5 level a year ago slip into the position that was your weakest defensively a year ago. AJ Halcy has committed to LSU.
Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. And with 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. XPass Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller is required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to start off on the quarterback front, and that brings us to Bear Bachmeier. Now, Bear is a guy who BYU recruited pretty heavily out of high school. They absolutely thought that he was a player they would love to have in this program. He ultimately opted to commit to Stanford, where his brother Tiger was playing at the time. We'll get to Tiger here in just a minute, but Bear enrolled early at Stanford, and when Troy Taylor was fired by the Stanford Cardinal, well, he decided he was better suited to look elsewhere because Troy Taylor was the coach he wanted to play for. So he entered his transfer portal, and BYU hopped in the mix right away. The interesting dynamic to all of this is that Bear and his brother Tiger, based on the reporting I saw, had the do not contact tag associated with their name in the transfer portal. What that means is they are requesting that schools do not reach out to them even though they're in the transfer portal. That means, for the layman's terms, that they have an idea of where they want to end up. And from what I understand, Bear made a very quick decision that he wanted to visit BYU, wanted to get a feel for what BYU, Aaron Roderick is his position coach and offensive coordinator, meet up with Kalani Sitake and see what Brigham Young University could do for him. And ultimately decided to pull the trigger. That report came from Pete Thamel on Saturday morning. And big addition for BYU, because the one thing about Bear is that he fills out BYU's quarterback room for this coming season. Obviously, Jake Retzloff is the incumbent. There would have to something absolutely horrific happen for him not to start this coming year as a senior for the BYU football program. Then behind him, you now have McKay Hillstead, Trayson Bourget, the aforementioned Bear Bachmeier, and Emerson Geilman. Coming up in the spring of 2026, 3 of those quarterbacks will be in the mix. You're saying, well, there's 5, Jake. Who are the 3 that will remain in the mix? Well, Jake Retzloff ultimately will move on, whether that's via the professional ranks or whatever he decides to do next after he has eligibility expires. But then also Emerson Geilman will be going on a mission. He's going to spend this season with BYU and then go on a mission in the winter. So that leaves Bear Bachmeier to compete with McKay Hillstead as well as Trayson Bourget as the guys who, in theory, are going to be the heir apparent to Jake Retzloff. Now, the transfer portal ultimately could yield another body or 2, and BYU also will be getting Enoch Watson back from the mission field as well this coming winter. Could he factor into the mix as quickly as it might take for him coming off a mission? TBD on that front. But the bigger point to be made here is that Bear Bachmeier, he is a really solid ad for BYU. And if you watch his highlight reel from high school, because that's all we really have to go off of, he went to Stanford and spent essentially spring ball there on the farm, as they like to call it in Palo Alto, and then hit the transfer portal. There were reports that emerged, though, that during spring ball, he had shown enough that he was going to be the backup quarterback this coming season. That shows that he's got a lot of skill. If you look at his highlight reel, though, there's a reason why he wears the number 47. And that alone sets him apart, because as our good friend BYU Statsman mentioned, the last time a BYU quarterback had worn the number outside of 1 through 19, and essentially had stats. I think it's a touchdown pass. Goes back all the way back to 1952. I remember the name off the top of my head, but shows you it's been a minute since BYU's had a quarterback who wears a unique number like Bear does. But as he has mentioned multiple times in media interviews, the reason why he wears that number is his dad told him when you cross the line of scrimmage, you essentially become a fullback or running back. You essentially become everything that a football player is meant to be. And he approaches that game that way. I'm going to invoke the name Taysom Hill when I look at what Bear Bachmeier can do as a quarterback. Now, Taysom, much like Bear, was more of an athlete playing quarterback at the high school level and then ultimately evolved into what he is today in the NFL and ultimately at BYU, where he became more of a true quarterback. Had elite athleticism. There's no doubt about it when it comes to Taysom, and I see shades of that in Bear Bachmeier. I will say this about Bear, though. I think Bear has the more refined arm that Taysom had both in high school and even during his time at BYU. Taysom always had a howitzer. He could unleash a ball and hurl it 50-plus yards, no problem. The problem was at times the accuracy was a little bit awry, and that ultimately caused some issues for him, not to mention the multiple season-ending injuries that he suffered while he was at BYU. But looking at what Bear offers, you can't teach what he has. He's 6'2", listed at 225 pounds, and that is pretty elite for a guy who's 18, 19 years old and has got a lot of time on his side because he is, like I said, a freshman still, has 4 years of eligibility, and is coming to BYU to show what he's capable of. And if you look at his offer list throughout his recruiting process, we're talking about Miami, Michigan, Notre Dame, Oregon, just the who's who, Texas A&M, Utah did offer him, Washington State. Like, he had offers up and down the list of the who's who of college football. Now, he ultimately picked Stanford because he wanted to get an elite education, obviously. And we'll talk about his brother Tiger, who is a certified genius momentarily. But I think the thing about what you bring with Bear Bachmeier is he will come in and he'll have to get up to speed because guys like McKay Hillstead and Trayson Bourget, they've got a full year's head start in this system, speaking of what BYU runs offensively, and they'll be trying to fend him off. But the physical talents, the tools that Bear Bachmeier brings, there's a reason why he was a 4-star prospect. And I get there's some consternation about him being downgraded from a 4-star talent as a high schooler to a 3-star transfer. Here's the deal. There are a myriad of different explanations that I could go into on it, but simply put, Aaron Roderick and BYU believe in Bear Bachmeier's talent. There's a reason why a number of other programs of national renown believed in his talent as well. And if those skills are there, he is going to surpass being a 3-star talent. I say this often on this podcast for those of you who are everydayers. BYU takes 3-star guys and gets 4- and 5-star production out of them. Well, if a guy like Bear Bachmeier, if he's more of what they think is a 3-star transfer, he becomes a 4- or 5-star production type player, BYU fans, you're not going to be complaining one bit down the line. And the nice part is you can tell this young man had interest in BYU and he wants to put on for the Cougars. And I, for one, I cannot wait to see the number 47 lining up under center. That is going to take some getting used to. I've seen a number 7. I've seen a number 4. In fact, Taysom Hill wore those 2 numbers while he was at BYU. But to put them together and have the same guy wear those 2 numbers while playing quarterback, that will be a unique look for BYU. But I think the physical tools, the pedigree, everything is there for a guy like Bear Bachmeier to come in and make an impression for BYU. And I'm looking forward to seeing him as a member of the BYU football program.
There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute Major League Baseball showdown or soaking up the excitement of an NBA matchup. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge until Gametime. With last-minute deals, all-in prices, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Plus, ticket prices actually drop as the beginning of the game gets closer, so you can score amazing seats at a great price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
Nebraska's got a new quarterback for the future.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast.
There was a quarterback commitment last night from 2027 Chicago area quarterback Trey Taylor, who did, before we get to the questions, cause a little bit of a stir with the in-state crowd
Illinois because he donned the Illini hat for multiple seconds upon his commitment yesterday, and
Yeah, this is a
that did not
thing.
sit well.
This is a thing that they do now. I think Travis Hunter, my son told me that Travis Hunter started this trend. That he did it when he committed to Jackson State. He committed to Jackson State and he put on a bunch of hats. But it happened before then, is what you're saying?
This is a classic. This is a classic recruiting move. He might have overdone
I think
it.
Travis elevated the visibility of it. I mean, certainly players have kind of done the like go one way and then go the other. But as far as like putting on the hat and saying something, I think Travis brought a lot of eyeballs to that tactic. And Trey Taylor tried it yesterday. He's like 15 or 16 years old. So let's remember that. He tried it yesterday and with Illinois, and it didn't go over well with Luke Altmaier, the Illini's veteran QB.
35-year-old starting quarterback from Illinois, Luke Altmaier. Yeah. Pick on somebody your own size, buddy. Okay. That's my advice. All right. So with that, let's get to the questions from Scott in Columbus, Nebraska. What do you see as the future for Nebraska at the quarterback position now with the commitment of one Trey Taylor?
Yeah, well, as I said, he's a young guy and he's got 2 years of high school left. Been a starter for 1 year at Carmel Catholic. He's from Lake in the Hills, Illinois. Sounds like a nice place. Is that what it is? Lake in the Hills, Illinois. Okay. North of Chicago. And it's going to be a while before he's scheduled to be at Nebraska. Recruiting is so weird today. And Trey Taylor is a top 50 player nationally in his class, number 2 quarterback or number 3 quarterback, I think, by On3 in the 2027 class. And, it was a news item on Thursday, but I didn't get the sense that this was like there were fireworks going off everywhere. One, people know that it's a long way down the road when you're getting a commitment from a high school sophomore. And then 2, college football has just changed with the way that not just commitments, there's always been recruiting that continues after a player is committed. But I think the portal has changed it so much because a high percentage of players who commit to a school end up starring and earning honors at a different school. So, and not to say that's going to happen here, but I think with recruiting now, and this is probably like healthy, there's a little bit of a sense of, okay, that's great. And we'll be very excited about it when this guy wins the job and starts taking snaps for Nebraska. So in that sense, no, the future's not set. Nebraska has Dylan Raiola in the class, Dayton Raiola in the class next year, the 26 class. And then Trey Taylor now in the 27 class. So there's a lot to be worked through before he ever gets a start for the Huskers.
Yeah, it can't be a bad thing. But if you're playing the odds, like you said, Mitch, chances are so in the old school recruiting days, you would play it out. Okay, Dylan Raiola is here. He's got 2 more years at the minimum, and then Dayton will be here. TJ Lateef, you're redshirting guys, you're trying to, kind of do it in succession. Yeah, like the chances are, even if you're doing it in the old school way, Trey Taylor's not playing in a game at Nebraska until like 2030 or 2029 or something like that, which it's a long time from now, number one. And number two, it's far-fetched to think it's all going to work out the way that, in line and succession like that. So
you just have to know that between Lateef and Dayton Raiola and Trey Taylor, that you have to hit with one of those guys. Like one of those guys is going to be the successor to Dylan Raiola. And if you make that happen, then fantastic. If you don't, then you just go to the portal and you find somebody, which is what a lot of schools do. So it's all up in the air. But another a big piece for Nebraska's recruiting future. And one thing that Trey Taylor will do is he will help recruit for that 2027 class. And he's going to be a vocal person for that. Seems to have a good personality, someone who's going to be out there pumping the Husker brand for sure.
Hey, there's a line of questions here regarding. There's 3 in a row regarding running backs. So let's skip ahead to those and cover those in this segment here. John in Bellevue first. Would you rather have Quentin Ives or Charmar Brown?
Should we answer all the? Well, we'll just take that one right here off the top.
Yeah, like I whatever it is. There's 3 questions about.
We're gonna do running back talk here.
Let's cover them all.
Could you have them both? You can't apparently have them both because Charmar Brown's headed to Miami. If I'm Nebraska, I'm probably not trading Quentin Ives for Marty Brown because Quentin Ives has been in the program for 2 seasons learning things. He's a known commodity. Marty Brown, on the other hand, is a known commodity in the sense that he's run for yards and touchdowns in college, and Quentin Ives has done very little of that. If you're just saying, all right, let's say like they were both in the portal and you were going to recruit one of them as like third-party school, you're Kansas, and you're looking at both of those guys. I think Marty Brown is probably getting more looks today because of what he's done at the even at the FCS level. For Nebraska, the answer to that question is probably Ives. So let's be clear in our conversation about Marty Brown yesterday and how we said that Nebraska should have done what it needed to do to get him. That doesn't mean like give up on Quentin Ives. You're going to need, we think, more than 2 backs in 2025 to succeed.
Yeah, you were playing for a situation where you had both of those people on your roster. So there was never really a one or the other. Never really a one or the other thing. So on that, James leaves a comment on YouTube and said, man, you guys are just disrespecting the running backs that we have and disrespecting our own coaching staff. I can't believe what I'm hearing from you guys. What a joke for a sports reporter. Great question.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in the comments. Like, we're not supposed to question what they do in Lincoln, I suppose. We're not supposed to wonder, like, could this be the right move? Could it be the wrong move? Like, Nebraska's 12-13 in 2 years under Matt Rule. Seriously? Nebraska's 40. Yeah, they're 47-69 over the last decade. Like, they have interesting point. They have not earned the right to go without being questioned for football decisions.
That's right. That's kind of how this works. I also like to just kind of double down on this right now, and I know this probably isn't going to make James on YouTube happy, but look at how Nebraska's handled the running back situation. Look at how this staff in particular has handled the running back situation. Like I mean, there was like a rotation of like 3 or 4 of them, and nobody knew who the best one was. I mean, in the first year when they got here, it was Anthony Grant. And then Anthony Grant fell off, and you're trying to find other stuff. And Emmett Johnson's kind of in the equation, and you know, Ramir Johnson's hurt, and they can't handle the guys that are hurt and stuff like that. But Emmett Johnson barely even played at the beginning of last year. He went through stretches in the season where he was, you know, getting 1 or 2 or 3 touches a game, and then it really ramped up when Dana Holgorsen came, you know, on staff, and then he started getting 20 plus touches a game. So, like, forgive me, I do have some criticisms about the way that they've handled the running back position in particular.
One other thing on that, I don't know if this was in response to our comments Thursday on the pod about the running backs and missing on Marty Brown. But it came to me at 10:39 yesterday from somebody in the Nebraska football community who's very much in the know on this situation, who said, do you get a feel for the difference between not compromising and wanting a guy pretty bad? So the question here is, did Nebraska just not compromise its standards? It's important probably to not compromise your standards as you go after players in the portal or in recruiting. So I understand that. I just think there was there was a need there. There was a need for Nebraska, and there's still a need.
They're not gonna. They've made it clear that they're not gonna like chase after guys. You know, mm-hmm. That's not their deal. And that's fine. That if you're really sure about what you have, and for me, it's more of this sort of laissez-faire way they've approached the position in general. One more question regarding a running back from Connor on YouTube, who asks if Jamarian Parker played in the Husker games. What's the latest on him? I know he had nagging injuries, but never heard much after EJ Barthel's interview.
He did not. And the last I saw Jamarian Parker, well, I'm sure he was there at the Husker games. I didn't notice him, but saw him on the bike when Nebraska had a practice that was open to the media, or a 20-minute portion of it inside Memorial Stadium in the middle of the spring. And Jamarian was out of practice that day, riding the bike, and there wasn't a lot of talk about the true freshman. You're right, Connor, after EJ's interview. So just kind of expected that, like, he like probably didn't progress as much as they might have hoped this spring, just because he wasn't entirely healthy. And you reset, or you build on that and go into August. Maybe he'll be a big surprise in August and be the answer to Nebraska's questions, but we didn't get an indication that was going to happen yet. Very talented freshman running back out of St. Louis.